All right, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna drill holes into this thing. I'm gonna use my smallest drill bit, and we're gonna drill pilot holes, basically. Now, some people will just use self-tapping and kind of just blow holes through this thing, but I don't want to do that because I've already drilled holes on the old setup. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna drill a hole right in the center of each one, as you can see right there. It should be pretty easy, kind of just eyeball it. This whole thing, you just need to just eyeball it. So we're just gonna figure it out. Get it kind of there, and that looks all right. See? That's it. Just get it in the center. You're gonna oversize this hole, right? So once you oversize the hole, you're gonna have enough play to kind of move the bolt around. We're gonna use the M5 bolt because that's what I use for the whole car. So we're gonna do the rest here and then we'll come back. Did that bird really just shit right over my face? What a dick. Good thing caught it on video. So when you drill these holes, and if you're using a step drill, make sure that you have some speed behind it, because if you don't, you're gonna end up cracking your fiberglass. So there you go. Perfect fit. That's it. M5 1.0? No, actually M5.8. So I'm gonna drill these holes. Make sure that it's big enough. You always want to have your bolt with you just in case. Remember, if you drill these too big, you're not gonna be able to go back. Alright, so here's a close-up of the holes. As you can see, they're centered right in the spot where they should be. There you go. See that? The little dimples? And you want to do that before you actually mount it on the trunk. Now, most body guys, I can tell you that when they get this spoiler, they'll just pop it on, tape it, look at it, and they'll just bust holes randomly in the center. And sometimes it's off-centered. Alright, so just remember, pre-drill your hole, make sure that you have it where you want it, and then if you have a marker, just mark the holes, right? In this case, we're gonna use a silver marker. I'm gonna mark the holes, and then I'm gonna drill the hole, insert the rib nuts. That way it's nice and centered. The way you're gonna kind of mock this up or center it is by looking at this corner right here. See that corner? And this corner right there. And also down here, see where it mates up? Right there, where it mates up. You can kind of slide it around, but where that mates up, you just kind of want to center that. Even though it's not exactly the same, you just have to get it close left and right. Because I know the fiberglass is slightly smaller, which is not a big deal. You just make sure that it's even left and right, and then the body guys can do the rest. All right, so the next step, we're gonna put tape under the spoiler here where it mates up with the trunk. So here-ish. Somewhere in this general area, so we can see our marker. I can't find my silver marker, so this is just gonna have to do for now. Let's double check, make sure we're there. There you go. See? That way we can draw right on it. Okay. There you go. Nice. Put that there. And then the bottom, right here. See that? This whole area. So we're gonna take this guy, put him over here. Right. Now, if you don't have a Rocket Bunny spoiler, you can still use this method to mount any body part, any space body part for your car. And I know this channel is dedicated to my cars, the Cayman and the Miata, but really, you can use this skill set for any build, any car, you know, anything, really. Okay, put that guy on here. Cool. There you go. Nice. Okay, so once you're done with that, you want to sit on the ground so you don't break your back. Or if you're working on a table, good for you. I'm gonna put this right here. It's like my little spacer, all right? So now it's kind of tilted this way. And I'm just gonna mount this on here, like so. And like I said, you're just gonna have to center this on the tips. See this? These tips right here? I'm filling the original trunk and also the spoiler at the same time. So just want to make sure that I kind of get it on there. So right here, not sure if you guys can see this, but this right here, the inside, you want to mount it inside here, all right? You want it to kind of latch on from the inside. Now if you need to make space, you can make space. Right here, sometimes these things are too thick, but you want to test it first. Look at that, I've already scratched this. Trying to mount it. This is why you want to put blue tape on everything you work on. See that? If that was raw paint, I would have scratched it already. Now after you find out where you want it, just get a few pieces of tape, like so. Alright. And if you have a helper, it would be great. If not, doesn't matter really. So take this, center it where you want. Just make sure you hold it nice and tight, and then tape it down. The trunk is under the spoiler, right? But if you level this out, if you have the trunk completely in line with the tip of the spoiler right here, you have a gap right there. You understand? So there you go. Just make sure that this piece of the trunk right here goes inside right here. All right, so now that I'm happy with the way this is set up, I got this thing taped up, and then I got clamps right here. Everything's lined up on the bottom, and the gap between these corners right here are even. So now, get my tape, or my Sharpie, and then we're just gonna draw a circle right here, like so. Now you wanna draw a circle, or whatever shape your hole is, so you can kind of gauge the center, right? Okay. All right, so now we got everything lined up. Holes. I'm gonna take off the tape and the clamps, right? Make sure you don't drop your spoiler wherever the hell you're working at. Okay. Now, take this guy off. On the side. Nice and easy. Then you go back here, and bam! You got your holes all over the place right there. If you're really anal, you can actually just measure left to right, see where your center is, and see if this lands on there, and then measure the distance between the tip right here to that hole, tip to that hole, and you kind of see where you're at. But you know, depending on your body panel, depending on your you know, whatever type of measuring device that you're using, you might be slightly off. So it's best to just mount this piece, and then see where you're at. So now we're gonna drill. All right, so these are the riv nuts that we're using. This is the M5 riv nut by 0.8, I think. So this is your typical riv nut right here. Nice and tiny, small. And this right here is your wobble riv nut. Hear that? It's wobbling inside. There's a nut inside right there that wobbles, so it can take on whatever angle you want. But if you put these two side by side, one's extremely large and the other one's tiny, right? So depending on what you need, you can use this or you can use this. You know, like the weird corners, I would use the wobble rib nut. So like right here would be fine for that. And for like in here where it's flat and you know it's flat, you can just use the regular rib nut. Before you go crazy and start drilling big holes, you want to make sure that you have a center punch. Get your center punch. I know some of you guys are like, dude, this guy's got the messiest drill box ever. I sure do. Everything else is nice and clean though. So, this is a center punch. This basically makes sure that your drill bit doesn't dance around. So, what you want to do is you want to get to the center of your, wherever you're drilling, hole, right? And then you just press down and click. See? Bam. You're gonna dent your hood or your trunk or whatever you're working on, FYI. That's the point. Okay. Just kind of get it as centered as you can. If you're off by a little bit, you're gonna be off when you put the fiberglass in or on. So that's good. Okay. Now this is where you need to take your time. This is all prep work, all right? Don't rush any of this stuff, because if you do, well, your end result's gonna be crappy. Doesn't matter how nice your paint job is, how well you fitted the fiberglass, if you're rushing this portion, it's not gonna line up properly. All right, now after you drill the holes, take off your tape. Now, if your piece is painted, it should be super clean and no chips. So as you can see right here, super clean, see that? So that's why you tape it. All right, so once you're done cleaning it up, get all the metal burrs off, make sure that the surface is clean. Grab your box of rib nuts that you probably didn't drop on the ground, but I did. I have to clean this up real quick. Now I was gonna use this as a secondary checker upper, make sure that we're perfectly there, but the undersized hole actually works and it's fine. It's actually preferred that you're exactly on point with the outside body. So if you put it on here and you press this thing in, it should slide right in, because it did earlier. If it doesn't, then we're gonna have to make it slightly bigger, but let's see. And this is the rib nut tool over here. And this will basically compress the rib nut in place. See that? And you could adjust the throw on these things. So I'm gonna adjust the throw a little bit. Make this a little bit. Okay, get it a little further out. Okay, now if you could spare the rib nuts, you should actually double check how much it's gonna crush it. So right now I feel like it's not gonna crush it enough. Okay, so here we go, we're gonna test it. There you go, see that? I like that. I'm gonna just enlarge it just a little bit. Okay, and that should be it. Now, like I said, you can test this, see how much it goes in, how much you want to engage the rib nut. So let's double check. Okay, I'm gonna back this out just a little bit so we're not too deep into the rib nut. Okay, so now when I crush this, it should mushroom perfectly. See that? Not too much, not too little. If you crush it too much, you can pull out the threads. Then you have to drill it out. It's a pain in the ass. Okay, so let's insert this here. See if it goes in. Yeah, it goes right in. Okay, so now we compress it. And there you go. We're right in there. Looks alright. Again, perfectly flush with the surface. If your rib nut's too tight, just kind of do this dance, then it'll just pop in. Then make sure it's tight, go flat, and then pull. Like I said, you don't need to be super tight when you crush these things, because, you know, as long as it's in there, it's in there. Again, if you over crush it, you can pull the threads or you can pull it sideways, which I just did here. But you'll never know until you test it. Okay, so put this guy in here. And it's looking like the secondary skin's preventing me from going all the way down. Looks like it. So we're gonna check under here. If you have a secondary skin on what you're trying to put a rib nut in, you may need to come in here and hit that a little bit. So we'll deal with that later. I'm gonna use a Dremel to make that bigger, but we'll do the rest right now so we save time and not burn everyone's time. Okay. It's good. Now if we did everything right, this should mount fairly easy. Okay, so pop this guy in the middle like so. Get a few bolts, start it by hand so that this doesn't slide off. Okay, and take the rest. Now I like to go slightly longer on my bolts just in case it backs out. It'll take a while to back out fully. Now you want to tighten from the middle out. So, middle out. That way it kind of tightens and pushes all the waves out. Get it? Alright, so after all said and done, it should look like this. See that? Nice and clean. If you look at the profile over here, it's nice and flat all the way across. You see that? Now don't worry about the waves on the finish right here. The body guys are gonna fill that up and they're gonna sand it down. That's why you need to block it. You can't just paint these things. Any fiberglass that you buy, it's gonna look like this, but this is probably the most straight piece you can buy. So there you go. If you look at the back right here, it doesn't have that weird imprint anymore like the version 1. And the rear profile looks pretty good. See that? Looks really nice. Now, if you have version 1, just note the holes down here are not going to be the same. So you can cover it with the new spoiler, but you'll still have the holes in the back. Now, if you don't want that, you can just buy a new trunk like I did. There you go. Looks pretty good. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to fit it on the car to see how it fits. And we can check these corners right here, see if we need to trim it, if we need to sand it down or whatever. I've already prepped this. As you can see, it's nice and clean already, but you never know until you install it on the car. And then if you look closely over here, the body guys will still need to fix the slight like little gap right there. And the rib nut, you can see right there, I used a 15 or 16 mil bolt, so it protrudes a little bit, but you want a little bit of the bolt hanging down just in case it comes loose. All right, here's the trunk installed. We've already made all the necessary adjustments for this thing to close properly. The trunk latch in the back, you can actually move it up and down. There's 2 bolts, and you can change the engagement of the trunk and the latch assembly. So if yours is closing really soft or closing like really harsh, you can change that. And over here, you want to make sure that you have at least an 1/8 inch gap, because if you don't, you're going to end up scratching the paint every time you close the lid. So if you look closely down here, you'll see that there's a gap. And as you can see, the line right here contours with the bottom of the trunk really nicely. So you won't see like the back of the trunk or anything like that. Looks really nice. See that? So the only thing I need to do is I'm gonna have Felix kind of sand this whole thing down, block it, make sure that it's perfectly straight, so it looks like this. You see how this looks like nice and very smooth. But if you look at the fiberglass, you can see the waves, right? There's some waves right there that looks kind of poopy. So this is very typical with fiberglass. You're gonna see some waves regardless of how great the fiberglass is. So you always have to have them, or have him, your body guy, block it, as you can see right there. So it matches the trunk right there. So that'll be this week, and then after everything's finalized, we install it, then we're gonna start taking orders for the version 2 spoiler.